Now, I drank the Kool-Aid, okay? I'll be honest. I really did believe that working 14, 16, 18-hour days were going to be the key to me actually being successful. And I did that very early on in my career. And by the way, today, I have 500K subs. I'm married. I have enough money so I don't have to work anymore. I've read over 200 plus books. But the truth is, my success is not because I spent 14-hour days or 18-hour days actually just working and working and working. Yeah, I heard Gary Vee.
I didn't go anywhere on the weekends. Nowhere. Who did that? Who worked 18 hours a day for fucking 15 years like I did?
I heard Elon Musk.
And then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week.
I heard even Will Smith.
Where I excel is ridiculous, sickening work ethic. While the other guy's sleeping, I'm working. While the other guy's eating, I'm working.
But the truth is that this is not me dissing them, but it's just an analysis. When you actually live a life like this, where almost everything you do is just about work, a lot of other things tend to be ignored. And what I saw in those men is that basically their personal lives were basically in shambles, okay? I saw divorces, I saw a lot of problems, and I knew for a fact that is not what I wanted. I did not want to be successful with money and then have divorces and children I abandoned and just a lot of crazy stuff going on in my personal life. So I wanted both. And what I found is that just by you working 4 hours a day, it is more than enough. And that's why I split up this video with 3 main ideas. The first idea is called Deep Work by the book called Deep Work by Carl Newport. And the second idea is called Shallow Work. And the third idea is just a strategy and an application of how I actually do this. Because by the way, it's not work less just in hours, but you're working less, but you're doing so much more. Let's get right into this video. Do me a favor and smash the like button. Now, the very first thing, guys, is you have to be focused. There are levels to this, okay? So if you read the book Deep Work and you also read the book Flow by Csikszentmihalyi, these 2 books in combination, honestly, it should just be one book. But the main idea is that Deep Work is all about doing the meaningful work that is going to move the needle in your company or your job or wherever you're finding yourself actually doing your workmanship, okay? That's the overall idea. Okay, so doing those big things and focusing and locking in, okay? Now, this study, when it says 4 hours, it was done on violinists, okay? And also musicians. And what they were doing basically was for a long time, they were just focusing and locking in. And they had high levels of activities going on in their brain. Usually though, for knowledge workers, we don't experience that level of intensity when it comes to our thinking on our work. Most of the time, we're just going from active to not active, active to non-active, okay? Kind of like this, okay? We're not just focused all the time. And in reality, you can't be more focused than 4 hours in a day locked in to a task. It's impossible. You can try it, you can do it if you want to, but it's not going to be possible. You're going to basically burn out. That's the word I'm looking for. So here's an idea, okay? Let's say, for example, you're a real estate agent. What are you going to be doing that's actually going to drive money and sales? That's going to be going out there and getting prospects and trying to sell them a house. It's not going to be, for example, printing flyers and doing emails and talking to Brenda about this and that. No, it's about locking in into what's that 80%, okay? By the way, there's the Pareto principle of like the 80-20 rule, right? Which is basically 20% of the activity you do actually drives 80% of all the gains you actually get. 20% of the customers give you 80% of the money and revenue you actually get. 20% of the activities I do here on YouTube drive 80% of all the revenue. And that is very true. Editing and basically recording video, that's what basically gets me paid here. The same thing usually with all the jobs. So it's focusing and locking in on those main things. Now here's what happens if you don't do this. If you don't block out and lock in. Number one, you see this phone here? It is not on. When I'm working, my phone is not on. There's no way to contact me. It is fully silenced. I'm also married. You never hear the door knocking while I'm working. Why? Because I've spoken about that in my household. When I'm working, I'm locked in. When I'm with you, I'm locked in, okay? But you have to establish limits. This way, you can lock in and you are 100% focused. Here's a problem when you don't do this, okay? By the way, when you go into flow, flow is a state of mind when you lose track of time and you are so involved in your task. Just so involved in it, okay? It's like when you play a video game when you're a kid, right? And you're like, well, oh my gosh, it's like 8 p.m. It's like 10 p.m. It's like 1 in the morning. What just happened, right? Same thing happens when you're just so involved in the work you're actually doing. That's what flow is. But every single time you get distracted by a notification or a knock on the door or somebody coming in over to your cubicle or somebody trying to interrupt you or an email coming in, every single time that happens, it takes another 15 to 20 minutes to go back into flow. So you're constantly being interrupted. You're constantly having to restart. So you want to utilize these three principles. One is the 80-20 rule. Find that 20% that drives the success to your business, to your job, to your employment, to your company, and then do deep work on it. So just lock in for 4 hours and focus on that one thing. And then 3 is try to enter a state of flow. Flow you're going to enter when you're locked in and focused without any distractions. If you don't do this, most of the work you're going to do is going to be shallow. And that's why this section is all about 2, shallow work. What exactly is shallow work, okay? Menial tasks for the most part. It's you answering emails. It's you talking to people. It's you doing meetings. It's you doing the customer service. All these things are super important, but you can't lock in for 4 hours and actually get some serious results in a business or in a company or in a job locking into those things, because at the end of the day, this is shallow work that could usually be delegated. But tell me, what if I don't have, for example, a company? What if I'm just working at a job? How do I tell my boss, for example, I'm not going to meetings, I'm not going to be talking to people around the office, I'm just going to be locking into this? First of all, if you work in an office, I highly recommend check out Ramit Sethi, because Ramit Sethi has a guide where he talks about exactly how to negotiate a position from being at work to being hybrid and being at home. I also recommend you actually read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. That book is going to change your life, because it might mean you are working there right now, but possibly you can get another job or negotiate with your boss to actually let you go home or be a contractor, for example, and that way you have a lot more free time. Here's a problem, okay? Employers hate this, okay? Do you know where the 40-hour work week comes from? Well, it comes from the industrial era. And back then, Henry Ford, by the way, if you don't know this, the 40-hour work week is actually an improvement. It used to be that we used to work 12, 14, 18-hour days in a factory, and we would go back home, no leisure time, no free time, just to go back to sleep, to wake up and go back to work. But thanks to Henry Ford, for example, he kind of started to establish a 40-hour work, from my understanding, and that's why we have it today. But no one can actually lock in and focus for 8 hours on a single task. You're just going to burn out for the most part, okay? So although the 40-hour work week is better than 100 or 120 hours, yes, you usually only need 4 hours of isolated, locked-in work. And to do this, you have to focus on the real things. Do not do shallow work. Avoid it. And if you can, try to delegate it. And if you can, here's why employers don't like this, because if I do 4 hours of work and give you the results of 8 hours, you're going to say, well, I want you to lock in for a full 8 hours, even though it's not possible. Because again, employers are just going to try to make as much money as they can, and they're going to try to squeeze you no matter what it costs you for your mentality, okay? So the whole idea is, you might be working in an office like I used to before, and in 4 hours, I can literally do what everyone is doing in the entire day, sometimes even in 2 days. And my employer would just tell me, well, keep working. Keep working. You got to be here until 5 p.m. Keep working. 9 to 5, right? Keep working. Doesn't matter. But that's what I hate about those things. But if you're at home or in a controlled area, you can put in those 4 hours of quality good work and then just retire for the day and do whatever you also want to do, okay? Now, shallow work is still going to have to get done. Now, not everyone has a lot of money or a business or people around them to actually do that work for them and delegate it to them. So what can you do? Well, I saw this video by Matt, which is a YouTuber here, and he was walking 10,000 steps a day. And what he starts to do is basically he started to use his exercise time to actually do that menial work. So he took the meetings while he was walking and exercising. He did those emails also while he was doing that, and he talked to people and so on. So you can find a way to proactively do that work that you can do without having to be ultra focused and locked in, because at the end of the day, it's going to have to get done. But I would designate a specific time and a block to actually do it. That's my advice, okay? So at the end of the day, I need to answer comments, I need to look up ideas, I need to answer emails, I need to do all these things. But if I have one day or a specific time every day to do it, I can do it a lot better, but I can also waste less time when I'm trying to lock in and focus on what I need to get done. The third part is this, guys, okay? Here's a system that I kind of just created by trial and error. And it's basically what works for me. So first of all, in order to get into a flow state, in order to do deep work, and in order to understand the 80-20 rule, obviously you're going to have homework to do. The homework is going to be find out what the 20% in your business or your job is going to be that drives 80% of the results. That's the first thing you got to figure out. The 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. And then when it comes to deep work, you're going to have to establish some things. Deep work works in combination with flow. Again, flow is just you entering it into a mindset where you lose track of time because you're so involved with what you're doing, okay? I don't know how long I've been talking here because I'm so involved with talking to you guys right now. That's the idea. Right now, I'm in flow. But what you want to do is you want to establish this. To establish this, you need to create a distraction-free zone, so no notifications, nothing, and you need to tell people around you that, hey, I will not be available until this point. Here's something that is super important. The way I break this up is into 90 seconds and 15 seconds off. What does this mean, okay? Now, if you study the great athletes of the world, for example, like Khabib, he basically talks about that all he did was rest and train, rest and train.
I sacrifice everything what I have. I will sleep, train, eat, repeat, and that's it.
Obsession?
Yeah.
When he's training, he's actively working. When he's resting, he's basically sleeping or basically eating, but he's not distracted by a phone. So I'm doing 90-minute sessions. These 90-minute sessions are just of me locked in and focused on one task and getting that done. That's it. That's all I do for 90 minutes, okay? And then once the 90-minute session is up, I basically go ahead and I take a 15-minute break. This 15-minute break, I basically do that like 3 times. That basically is about like 4.5 hours for the most part. But I'm able to do that because, again, my job isn't as high level as, for example, like playing a violin where you're constantly having to be focused. No, I have basically fluctuations of concentration because I'm doing a lot of knowledge work, okay? For the most part, that's why I can do a lot more work. But the idea is when you're actually doing this, you take 90 minutes on, 15 minutes off. But when you're doing the 15 minutes off, do no distractions, no phones, no screens, no doing more research, no YouTube videos. No, just walk around the house, have a conversation, have some tea, have some coffee, do what you want, but just let your brain rest. And when you come back, you're going to be fully refreshed. Now, here's a truth that you need to know. Most likely, you are not going to be able to do this, okay? For me, it was very hard at first because I just wasn't trained to do it. I could only really focus for about 25 minutes and then 5-minute breaks. You know why? Because my brain was like a goldfish. I was just all over the place, all right? So you can do something called the Pomodoro or the tomato timer. The whole idea is you do 25 minutes on and you do 5 minutes off. You do that 4 times, and then for the last break, you're actually going to take a full 30-minute break. So by the time you're done with 25 minutes, you're basically done, for example, about 100 minutes of work, which is actually good work. You took in, for example, like 20 minutes of break, but then the last break, you take 30 minutes, okay? That way you're able to achieve a lot with small breaks and then you are still locked in and focused. Here's what I don't like about this. Sometimes you're doing a task and you're locked in and the timer rings and now you're locked off, right? Because now you're distracted. You're no longer in flow. So what helps me out a lot are going to be these two things that I have right here, okay? These are hourglass. One is for 1 hour and one is for 30 minutes. So when I'm doing 90-minute sessions, which by the way is an hour and a half, I go ahead and I turn on, by the way, you can see this is basically on, my 1 hour timer is on. And when this runs out, once I notice it, and I might not notice it for a while, honestly, I go ahead and I turn on my 30-minute timer, right? And this way I can be locked in and working, and this can be ran out. But if I'm so locked in and I'm so focused, I'm staying locked in and focused. So for the most part, guys, if you don't know this, you don't need to work more than 4 hours, but this doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. You need to be locked in the tasks that actually matter, and you need to be distraction free, and you need to be focused and basically just be one-sided on this one task you're actually doing. It's actually going to improve your life a lot more. And you might say, Tommy, if you're only working for 4 hours, what do you do with all the free time? Well, that's what we call leisure time. I just learned this not too long ago, which is basically we associate leisure time or free time with like watching TV, playing video games, and for example, like doing things like that, which I do by the way. But I've started to do, for example, other things with my leisure time, like talking to my wife, reading the Bible with my wife, trying to disciple my wife, butchering a chicken. Yes, you heard me right. Butchering a chicken, dealing with the garden. I also want to take on woodwork now. And these are all activities that you might say, Tommy, isn't that like more work for you? The answer is no. Yes and no. Yes, it is more work, but it is a lot more fulfilling. You know, I play video games, I watch movies, I do these things, okay? And one thing I can tell you, these things for the most part are just like cheap dopamine. It's just like cheap in the sense that you feel like you're making progress, but you really aren't. And sometimes I watch something and I end up just walking away more tired. Sometimes I play video games and I end up walking away more tired. I'm like, why this is so much work, okay? But when you make real progress in life, it makes a difference. Are video games bad? Are movies bad? Is things like that? No, the answer is no, obviously. But you do them, but I do want to spend a lot more time on leisure, on good active activities. So in the end, you might see Gary Vee, a lot of money. You might see Will Smith, a lot of money. Elon Musk, a lot of money. Ultra successful man as far as material goods, but you don't want to live, for example, an unbalanced life like that. What I always shoot for is, yes, I want to have success, but I also want a family. I want a family, but I also want a good marriage. I want a family and a good marriage, but I also want a good relationship with my kids. I'm super selfish in that way. And to be super selfish in that way, you're going to have to devote yourself to all these things. You just can't be saying, I spend 16-hour days and it's so good. No, it's not. It's not. Guys, that is it. Thanks for watching. This is gonna help you if you actually apply it. You can buy these on Amazon or AliExpress. My girl bought them for me, like on Shane, I think it was. If you want to, you can get a Pomerato app. It's on the App Store. I'll put it right here. This is also free. You don't need to pay for any of these things, but I do recommend you read 3 books. The 80-20 Rule, The 4-Hour Work Week, Deep Work, and also Flow by Csikszentmihalyi. It's 4 better. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Subscribe and peace.